Thank you, Dean Filizzola. It is an honor to welcome our graduate students and their families to the second annual lab coat ceremony at Mount Sinai. We are the only graduate school in New York City that has a lab coat ceremony and one of the very few nationally. Yet we think that this is a very important event because of the centrality of the nation's biomedical research enterprise to our health and economy, and the unique responsibility that each of our graduate students will have once they complete their training. As we noted last year, the lab coat is a symbol of the authority and professionalism of science and medicine. And even though this is the only day of the year that I actually wear a lab coat, as you could see from how poorly it fits me, I wear it figuratively every day with great pride. The most critical dimension of your graduate school career will be finding the right laboratory in which to do your doctoral dissertation research. And the most critical aspect of that choice will be the lab's principal investigator, who will be your mentor. In fact, I would argue that the lab PI is more important for your future than the content of the lab's work and the experimental approaches that your lab utilizes. If it works as it should, your lab mentor will be one of the most significant relationships of your professional lives. Your lab mentor should teach you not only how to do science, in some ways I think that's the easiest part, but also teach you how to run a lab, how to get a group of young students, postdocs, and research assistants to work productively and collaboratively, but also in a friendly, positive, and constructive tone and climate, and how to establish positive, synergistic relationships with many other laboratories here at your home institution and well beyond. According to Wikipedia, my source of all knowledge, mentorship describes, and I quote, a relationship in which a more experienced or more knowledgeable person helps to guide a less experienced or less knowledgeable person. Wikipedia goes on to describe the recipient of mentorship as the mentee or protege, and the person giving the mentorship as godfather or godmother. The word mentor comes from Homer's Odyssey, in which the character named Mentor imparted wisdom to, shared knowledge with, and helped future planning for Telemachus, who was the only son of Odysseus and Penelope. A little bit closer to home, those of you who are Seinfeld fans may remember an episode from the 1990s focused on the mentor-protege relationship that involved the chocolate sauce Bosco. Any remembrances? Well, I digress. My life was changed forever by my PhD mentor, Paul Greengard. And this is a timely subject because Paul died just this past April at the age of 93. At that time, he had a lab of 61 people at Rockefeller University. It was the largest lab at Rockefeller and the one with the most funding. And I'd like to dedicate my remarks today to him. I joined Paul's lab when I was 20 years old, still in college, and chose to stay on for my MD, PhD degrees in large part because I wanted to work in Paul's lab. I was drawn to Paul by the style of his science, and I suppose in some ways at age 20 I had good taste because Paul ended up winning a Nobel Prize 25 years later. But it was really much more than the science. I loved the way Paul managed the lab, which had about 27 people in the lab at the time I was there. Especially the multiple ways in which Paul was able to get every single person in the lab to feel good about their work and produce results commensurate with their capabilities. The large majority of people in the lab did not have science and nature papers, Yet Paul found a way to ensure that everyone felt rewarded, that everyone's accomplishments were seen as significant and contributing to the lab's overall efforts. Paul was a master motivator, finding different ways to get everyone in the lab to achieve their maximal potential. He was also unusually big-hearted and empathic. When I was a student in the lab, another student was having a very difficult time personally and professionally struggling with depression. And in contrast to the reaction that many PIs at the time and since that I've seen have in this position, I was struck then by Paul's generosity and his personal efforts to find a way to help the student get better, taking the extra time the student needed to eventually complete his PhD and do the best he could. Paul was also one of the funniest people I've ever known. I still laugh out loud when I think of some of the things that Paul has said to me in his uniquely mischievous and irreverent way. And this is a good lesson for life as well. We must never forget that humor is an essential elixir for good science, and happy living. Paul's influence on my life far exceeded the few years that I was in his laboratory. Paul remained a mentor to me for life. Despite the fact that I left the Greengard Laboratory in 1983, and I dare ask our students how many were born in 1983, I relied on Paul for personal and professional advice for several decades thereafter, well into my 50s. I would schedule trips to New York City just to have dinner with Paul, to get that advice, and I left each and every visit reinfused with that distinctive sense of well-being and confidence that, frankly, only Paul was ever able to give me, to offer me over the course of my own career. And over the years, I've used what I've learned from Paul in managing my own lab as I face challenges, and a lab PI always faces challenges running a laboratory. I would often say, WWPD, what would Paul do? I hope that these personal reflections on my mentor are helpful to you as you seek out yours. Your goal should be to find the same things in your PhD mentor that I found in mine. In addition to your lab PI, your mentor might include a classroom teacher, an important collaborator, or a member of your thesis committee. My experience and similar ones of many of us on stage today have guided our efforts to make Mount Sinai's graduate program as generative, positive, and supportive as possible, to offer all of you what we gained during our PhD training. All of us here hope and believe that Mount Sinai can offer you just that. As you all embark on your graduate student careers, get yourselves into labs that enable you to reach your potential and make your lives whole and also happy. I consider myself one of the luckiest guys on earth because every day I get to pay forward my experience to run a lab, to work with young people like yourselves, and to pursue science, my life's passion. I hope that each and every one of you use your PhDs for an equally rewarding and enjoyable career. Thank you.